You may believe it or not, but I only started cooking in approximately 2021. Yes, you heard me. Some of you will find that hard to stomach, but all my life I either had family members cook for me and they were very good at it because they could cook really well, or I always ate out and ordered takeaways. Certain restaurants and takeaway shops expected my calls at certain times of the week. I must also add that the delivery drivers knew me quite well. When I lived in London, I'd be on the way back home from work. I'd open an app, order some food, pop into a shoe shop to look at some shoes that had caught my eye, maybe pick up a lip gloss from a makeup counter at a department store, and get home much later to find my food waiting in its dedicated storage bag. I always had lovely neighbours, a bit older, who always asked how I got away with ordering so much food. I don't know, I guess it just became a necessity. My first time living alone, I became friendly with my neighbours. One loved to cook and the other loved to bake. I was in heaven. The problem was, when everyone does something for you, you never do it for yourself. Cooking has always seemed like a huge inconvenience to me. Pots, pans, the sharpening of knives, cutting things a certain way, adding seasoning without measuring, and coming up with it tasting perfect, and then having to source ingredients. I always wondered how my family kept the cupboards in our huge kitchen stocked with what they needed. I didn't get it. At the time it seemed like sorcery. A bit of hocus pocus was at play. So I ended up thinking of cooking as impossible and hard. Then 2021 came and I really wanted a coconut fish curry. I was no longer in London, but in a part of the UK where the quality of the exotic meals weren't up to par. I thought about this coconut fish curry for a while and then decided to attempt it. I googled a recipe and came up with something that was easily attainable without my having to go fishing or fetching a certain ingredient that was 6 hours away on a plane and in a 1-mile region of an exotic country. I got to it and got most of the ingredients as well as the fish and began. I was finishing as a friend was coming for a visit. The first thing she did was mention the smell. That smells lovely. I told her it was a fish curry. I gave her some as we talked and her eyes lit up. I didn't get the significance of the action at this point because I didn't think I'd be bad at cooking. I just thought it would be complicated. You see, I grew up in an era where cookbooks and culinary skills were all the rage. People would buy these ridiculously huge cookbooks. We had quite a few at home, and when I read them, I always wondered where you would go to find the ingredients. How many hours by car would it be? And would the mountain be accessible when you got there? Those were the unfortunate thoughts that always went through my mind. It just seemed so useless. I will also add that at that point, cooking shows and books had become a largely middle-class activity, or were marketed to that segment. You know, people who had huge galley kitchens with processing machines, huge juicers, and all the other slightly useless machines that renters could not dare have. So it excluded a lot of us. I also noticed that half the processing tools and knickknacks in our kitchen were only used perhaps once a year, and when we felt like doing something ridiculously complex. After the fish curry incident, I realized I was a good cook. I had a good balance with ingredients, seasonings, I was hygienic in the kitchen, and more importantly, my meals tasted lovely. I just kept charging ahead and began to cook a lot more. I even started throwing dinner parties, which were the highlight for me. There is nothing better than cooking for people. I believe it is the ultimate act of love, and now I understand why so many do it. My favorite activity to do after a long day at work is come home, make a quick sauce, onions, tomatoes, garlic, brown sugar, a host of seasonings, and just whip something up quickly. I always play a podcast in the background, usually serial killers. I have some wine to hand and I relax. For that time period, I'm completely cut off from the rest of the world. I also cook for my dogs. I don't give them dog biscuits or kibble, or whatever that crap is called. I steam their veg, red cabbage, carrots, broccoli, sometimes spinach if available, some chopped apples, canned fish, because fish prices here are insane, and a host of organ meats, kidney, heart, chicken legs, beef mince, etc., to give some balance, with a bit of turmeric, black pepper and ground ginger. They love it too and look forward to it. I don't think I would have appreciated cooking anymore if I discovered it earlier. I think it came to me at the right time. Seeing my family deal with huge contraptions, 7 huge pots and a whole load of washing up, just to cook a meal, put a lot of fear into me. And, we did not use the dishwasher. We had a dishwasher for our entire duration in our home. We never once used it because no one wanted to load the dishwasher and no one ever wanted to unload the dishwasher. So we were always at a strange stalemate. So, are you a good cook? Do you like cooking? Or were you ever teased about a lack of cooking ability? Even more interesting, were you ever told as a woman that cooking is your role and your role alone? And did you ever tie your self-worth to your ability to cook? I'm so glad I didn't, because I'd be in the dregs right now. I grew up in Nigeria, and what I found was a lot of men I knew how to cook. And not only did they know how to cook, but they could cook the more complex dishes, as they took it upon themselves to learn, whilst away studying, and just because they felt the need to, with no prompting whatsoever. It was all about necessity and wanting to cook nice dishes. My uncle, every Christmas, was always in charge of the birds, like turkey, duck, guinea fowl, and he could make just amazing dishes. But no one else, not my grandmother, none of the women in my family, knew how to cook the big birds. And he just always came up with such amazing dishes. And he was also very good with, the more fancier dishes like duck and everything associated with poultry. He could also cook things like steak to perfection. Whether he wanted it raw, medium, well done, he always knew how to do it. And he cooked, I must add, to a very restaurant like Michelin star level. He was very, very good, and he still is. And he could just go into the kitchen, look for the necessary ingredients, and just whip up something amazing. So this is why, in my family in particular, I never really associated femininity with cooking, because although the women in my family could cook, the men could create some amazing dishes. I'm not sure if it's a red pill spaces these days, but I've heard quite a few strange comments about women being able to cook and do this and that and, all these other things around the kitchen. But I think it's such a weird and very toxic mindset, because some of the best cooks I've met have been men, and they've been able to make the most amazing dishes. Anyway, like I asked before, are you a good cook? Do you like cooking? Do you assign your self-worth to cooking? Let me know in the comments. Love you all. Until the next video. Goodbye.